Council, please come to order. If we would all stand, please, we led in prayer by Alderman Darrell Wilson.
Almighty God, we ask for your blessing upon the members of this council as we assemble here in this chamber to conduct the ongoing business of our city. With your guidance, we will strive to ensure that all our decisions are for the common good, and your inspiration will instill respect, compassion, and thoughtfulness in all our deliberations. Give us the strength and the wisdom to lead by example as the people's representatives, and that peace and harmony will mark all our proceedings. And keep us faithful to the place trust in us by the citizens of your community. Amen.
Amen. Alderman Berto, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Citizen comment general.
At this time, I declare citizen comment general to be open. If you wish to speak to issues not on our agenda in particular, please do so. I don't have a sign-up sheet, but if you raise your hand, I'll acknowledge you. And please speak at the podium in 3 minutes each person, name and address. Anyone wishing to speak on a citizen comment general at this time? Yes, Mrs. Philbrick, I saw your hand.
Can I close this? Joanne Philbrick, Norwich Town. Here we are, the last meeting of 2022. So I ask all of you and the members of this audience, are we better off today than we were a year ago? I'll just leave that out there for you. I have a prepared statement because I get emotional. So some of it I will read and some of it will be off the cuff. For me, the cornerstones of public service are trust, truth, and transparency. In the last several months, these core values have been severely tested. There is anger, frustration, lack of trust, jockeying for power and control, and the propagation of misinformation bordering on out-and-out lies. I have read the McGrath report. I am not a neophyte when it comes to public safety. I've been an EMT, a 911 dispatcher, a member of the Martha's Vineyard Search and Rescue team that looked for JFK's downed plane. I have some confidence in the fact that I know what the McGrath report was trying to accomplish. I have also obtained and read the presentation offered by Mr. DeLucia at the last council meeting. I personally feel that his action was an abuse of power and only serves to drive the wedge deeper and wider. It went forward based upon the majority of votes, so it is what it is. However, after obtaining and reading the presentation, which is a matter of public record, I was shocked to read the last paragraph that did not come across to the members of the public. And what this last sentence was, under the heading, territorialism by design, if not for auto aid. It then shows what I believe to be a run card for Yantic Town Street. And herein lies my concern. Going back to the core values, trust, truth, and transparency. Mr. DeLucia states the following. For example, if an elderly woman falls on Elm Avenue and breaks her hip, and the volunteer fire department does not respond to the alarm, help is guaranteed to be sent, and she will no longer have to wait 30 minutes or more for a friend to arrive to help her. How, when, and where did you obtain this very specific example? Because the very definition of it, for example, is to introduce something as a typical case. And this is where it gets difficult for me. I perceive this as a blatant and overreaching invasion of my privacy. Joe, do you find this funny? Because you're sitting up there again with that look on your face that makes me extremely uncomfortable. Had you simply used a person in Norwich Town with the same scenario, it would have been sufficient to make your point. Which brings me to my last two statements. You, Joe, on your Facebook page today stated, "It is not the right of a vocal and fortified self-interest group to persuade people to sign a petition under false pretenses and by using fabricated alternate facts." I would argue the point that you yourself used alternate facts. When you singled me out, I am the only elderly lady on Elm Avenue. I did not break my hip, but I'm not going to go into my medical history for the citizens of Norwich. Those that are interested know the story. So, this is like the pot calling the stove. And then your last, you say that if you had just as a group let things go and let the November 1st plan go into action and given it the 6-month window of opportunity, we wouldn't be where we are today. To those of you who stood up and expressed your opinions, I applaud you. To the rest of you, if you can't have a thought of your own, you don't belong sitting up there, because you asked God at the beginning of your presentation to guide you in the trust that the citizens have placed in you. Lastly, Joe, your statement is, "Please do not allow yourself to be preyed upon by manufactured fear and false statements. If you believe that you were deceived in any way and signed a petition, contact the city clerk's office tomorrow morning, serving respectfully as your alderman." To me, this is an absolute abuse of power. You have taken your position as an alderman, as a representative of the citizens of Norwich. Have your opinions, express them in your little caucuses, at the bar, whatever you do when you're not working. But you have a responsibility to the citizens of Norwich. I want to know where you got your information that used as an example to sway the people of Norwich. So perhaps you can send me an email and tell me where you received this information. But I should put you on notice that I have already called the police department. I have already spoken to Chief Daley. I have also already reviewed the 911 calls. And there ain't no way in hell that you got this information from those. So I'm anxious for you to, in the interest of trust, truth, and transparency, I have told my truth. Now I need you to tell your truth.
Thank you. Gentleman someone had a hand on the left side. Yes, sir, please.
It started out, I had a list of questions.
Excuse me, sir, could I have your name and address?
Harold Mecteau, M-E-C-T-E-A-U, 365 Canterbury Turnpike. I had a list of questions, but I'm going to forego that.
Sir, you want to speak on the zoning matter, is that correct?
The what?
The matter concerning zoning tonight?
Yes.
If you want your statements to be part of that public record, when we reopen the public hearing,
Okay, I didn't realize that. Okay,
no, just if you want it in that body of text with
Right.
the public record. You
Yes.
certainly can continue, but it won't be included in that public record.
well, I'll wait till that then.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else under general citizen comment, please? Anyone else under general citizen comment? Yes, sir. Mr. Bowie.
Good evening. Rodney Boy, 62 Roosevelt Avenue. I've missed several of your meetings, so I'm not totally in touch with some of the things you were talking about. I understand that there is a petition being circulated by the fire department, Tafel. I have used the department several times. I've had 4 fires in my apartment houses over there. I don't want any machinations as far as the fire department come. Please. They serve a unique responsibility in Tafel. The fires that I had were caused by people, different people, and some of them were fairly severe. I had one house burned down on Roosevelt, and I lost the whole house. That was done by Norwich Fire Department. The Tafel, I had 3 fires in the same house, and the amount of money spent to fix them up was just minor. I consider minor, it's about $20,000, $30,000. I have been a fire marshal, a volunteer fire marshal for several accidents on Norwich Avenue. And the Tafel Fire Department was there before Norwich Fire ever was. Now, I want you to consider the fact that these people are doing a good job, and I don't want them screwed around with. Literally screwed around with. They do a good job. It doesn't cost us, the CCD, that much. I have a house on Roosevelt, and I've never had a fire in it, but the house up the street was burned down. Total loss, Norwich Fire Department. I was there 2 o'clock in the morning, and I watched them literally burn the house down. So please, leave the volunteers alone. I've been in a volunteer department since I was 16 years old. I fought several fires, a couple of forest fires. I used to teach firefighting on naval destroyers. I know something about the fire departments. So please, leave them alone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak under general citizen comment, please? Anyone Anyone else under general citizen comment? Anyone else under general citizen comment? Seeing no one else, I declare that closed. Thank you all.
Public hearing. Number 1, an ordinance amending the zoning map of the City of Norwich, creating a business master plan district.
Thank you. At this time, as I reopen this public hearing that was continued from our last meeting, I'm going to ask people who did not get a chance to speak the first time. There are a number of people who were not given that opportunity or had to leave, and we're here to hear new evidence that has not been presented previously. So if someone is here who could not attend the last public hearing, or the first part of this public hearing, and who's here now, and I do have a sign-up list, I'm going to go to that, but I want to make sure that if someone has not spoken before, they have an opportunity. We're here to hear more evidence about your concerns, and that's what we're going to do. So who would like to speak who has not spoken previously at this time? Oh, just for a minute, please. We did receive 2 emails in the course of the last 24 hours, and our city clerk did, in fact, pass them out to the council members while I was beginning the discussion. And one person is Mr. Mark Lefkowitz, and the other person is Luigi Sciacchietta. I hope I didn't slur that too badly. Sorry. That's who sent them to us. So who is here who did not have a chance to speak the first time as part of this public hearing? Sir, with your hand up? Yes, with the hat. Jeez.
Harold McDowell, 365 Canterbury Turnpike. And it's come to my attention that the City Council also sits on the board of the Norwich Community Development Corporation. Is that true?
There are 3 members.
3 members.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm assuming that's why the 3 members abstained from the vote. Why did all the City Council vote on financing?
So we're here to listen to your testimony. I'll be happy to answer those questions
Okay.
after everyone's had a chance to
All right.
speak.
First off, I think it's a conflict of interest that the board, there's members on the board that are on the board of directors of NCDC and are also on the zoning committee, the zoning board. I think it's a definite conflict of interest. That's my opinion. I won't get involved with other things that I consider valuable, but that's what I consider important, conflict of interest.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who did not get a chance to speak the first time? Oh, please, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Yes, in the middle, please.
Hi, my name is Kim Pilch. I'm at 41 Caribou Drive, and I would like to request that my 11-year-old daughter read something she wrote on this matter, since she has a very strong opinion.
Certainly.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Grace Pilch, and I live at 41 Caribou Drive. I like to talk about the business park as proposed for the land in Norwich near our home. Please think about all the animals that will lose their homes from hundreds of acres that would be cleared out for the buildings. You are putting these animals in danger because they have nowhere to go or get hit by all the cars and trucks from all the traffic. There are likely protected species on this land like box turtles and bald eagles and many more. We have seen bald eagles many times. Then, when the land and trees were cleared across from Moriarty, we started to have lots of animals like fox families take over our neighborhood and living in my yard. With all the land going away, the animals will probably die. With all the trees being taken down, we lose all the air that's provided to us. Next, let's talk about all the pollution. The extra cars and the big trucks will produce extra CO2, which is one of the main causes of global warming. The number of air pollution is super high, and we should be trying to get those numbers down and not adding to them. The noise pollution will also be super high with all that is happening with the trucks and cars going by all the time. So I think you should vote no to building the business park. Please think of all the animals and people that will be impacted. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who did not have a chance to speak the first time who would like to know? Please.
Hi, my name is Holly Watson. I live with my parents at 507 Canterbury Turnpike in Ockham. I am totally against, and my family is against the factories because we don't want to lose all the land and the quiet in our neighborhood. Our neighborhood is very safe right now, even though we do have some speeders. And we also are against the roundabout because that road where you want to put the roundabout is very dangerous. In the winter, you slide down that hill. So if you put the roundabout and we slide into that roundabout, we're going to get hit or killed or something. Also, I was thinking if, besides keeping our wildlife, why not put, since Norwich really, really wants a community center, put a little community center in the fields and have people teach about the different wildlife that we have there and about the history of the farms that are right there. Because Norwich is all about history, so let's teach about the farms and the different stuff. Maybe bring back, if there is still some of the equipment left of the farms, have like a display, like a little tiny museum right there, without all the factories and all that. Then we will cut down on the traffic too. And have like an outdoor, like Harkness and Waterford has a guy that does all these big, beautiful kites. How about bring that to Norwich in the fields? Because Norwich has no place to fly kites. And like even children, families have no place to fly kites. At least the big field is cleared so you can be able to do things like that, or have little picnics where it's nice and beautiful. Just have a picnic out there to watch the wildlife. Have maybe some, do yoga out there in the fields. Like have things like that, and maybe like a swimming pool, even though there is butterflies down, bubbles to butterflies in Ockham, but that's more geared for children. We need a swimming pool and swimming lessons for adults too, besides kids. The rec department only does swimming lessons for kids at Mohegan Park, because I've already checked into that. And have maybe miniature golf out in the fields, have like something like that, because we have no miniature golf anymore. Having like a bike trail so we can ride our bikes in the field. I have a bike that's sitting in the basement. I won't ride on our streets because it's too dangerous. Have like places for us to, even though we have the Ockham Park for walking around, but that's round in a circle. How about have some nature walks in that field so you can see the wildlife that are there? I just had a deer coming home the other night from work. I saw a nice baby deer eating some of the fir trees that are there on Canterbury Turnpike near my house. And we've seen a coyote before, and it was cute seeing him coming in our backyard. So if you put up the factories with all these trucks coming through, you're going to be killing all these beautiful wild animals and killing the peace of our neighborhood.
Thank you. Anyone else who hasn't had a chance to speak? Please, ma'am.
I'm Noreen Varney, and I live at 7 Numchuck Drive. And I printed out the legal description that was posted to this, and I just wanted to read the bottom portion of it at the end there. Creating a new business park will enable Norwich to attract businesses within the uses set forth in the BMPD, which will then generate employment opportunities, generate real estate and personal property taxes, ancillary revenue for the expansion of electric and gas service to the business park. And when I read this, it's like I look at the development of this land as a business transaction. While all these people sitting here, and myself included, we're not a business transaction. We're people that actually live in these neighborhoods, and you're going to impact the quality of our life drastically if you put this business park in a neighborhood. We live in a quiet rural neighborhood, 384 acres. You say it's the last amount of property left in Norwich. Well, I don't want to be the sacrificial lamb left for everybody in Norwich to say the 384 acres that are left in Norwich Town is going to be the one where the business park goes. There are a lot of people sitting here. You're going to affect our lives. We're going to have trucks, traffic. Someone's going to have a 4-story building in their backyards. This is the question, have you been up there? Have you gone down the roads to see what our neighborhood looks like? Have you gone down? I don't see any roads in Norwich, Scotland Road, all the different roads off that are, do they have any 4-story buildings in their neighborhoods? This is not the appropriate place to put an industrial park. It's a quiet, rural neighborhood. And I don't know what the solution is. I'm not against business. I'm not against producing income for the city of Norwich, but this is not the right area. This is not the right place. These are our homes, and we're not a business transaction. We're not a dollar bill. These are our homes. And I would urge you to try to come up with another solution. I don't know what that is, but I urge you to go back and find out what that is. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else who had not spoken yet at the public hearing previously? Okay, I'm going to go to the list. Jennifer Chadakowicz. Is there a Jennifer here? Oh, okay.
Hi, Jennifer Chadukowicz. I apologize because I think I'm speaking on ordinance 2, the opioid settlement. I thought that's what I signed up for.
Okay.
Is that okay? Are
That's
you up?
fine. Yep.
Okay, I can wait.
We'll call you back. Thank you.
We might be here all night, but.
Fred Phelps.
My name is Fred Phelps. I live at 17 Sabrina's Court. Sabrina's Court is off Plain Hill Road. With the advent of GPS in the past few years, there's been a notable increase in tractor-trailer traffic on Plain Hill Road. It's narrow, and you don't want to be around when two of them pass each other. And you certainly don't want to be around when they're trying to turn in or out of the back access to the industrial park. People walk on that road. I won't do it. It's too dangerous. The traffic and safety concerns about the proposed park that have been voiced to you previously by residents are real and they're valid. You should give them strong consideration despite what DOT officials have said. You heard from angry people 2 weeks ago, and I'm sure there'll be plenty more of that again tonight. People are angry because they're scared. And they're scared because they don't really know what your intentions are going forward. Not in their wildest dreams did they ever envision the powers that be in Norwich would put an industrial park in their neighborhood. I'm sure you feel the process has been transparent, but it's not. It's not even close. In reviewing the NCDC website, there is not one piece of information regarding this project, save for a brief description of it in the Commission's monthly minutes. September was the last minutes posted on the website. It was only by blind luck that I came across the NCDC's 28-page zoning application and for the zoning change and its 116-page appendix. It was attached to one of the City Council's meetings minutes. Wouldn't it at least seem appropriate to put a link to the City Council's minutes to those documents on the NCDC's website? I realize NCD is busy and probably understaffed, but this is a big deal. It affects a lot of people, and they deserve to be informed. I'd like to bring up a couple of points of concern. Mr. Brown was quoted, hopefully correctly, in the Norwich Bulletin that the Commission has no near terms to develop land on the west side of Lawler Lane. Unfortunately, the sample site plan shows 2 properties on that side of Lawler Lane and a third within the main complex, which is to be accessed from Lawler Lane. I know the site map is conceptual, but it's all we really have to go on, isn't it? Maybe it's an oversight, but it's contradictory nonetheless. We've been told that the DOT doesn't feel there will be any impact to the local neighborhoods from increased travel. Yet it figured there would be 3,500 total extra trips daily to and from the complex. That is with full saturation of the complex. RKG Associates, hired by NCDC to do a realistic occupancy assessment, indicated that for the Phase 1, the first 9-year period, the best case scenario would likely be a 65% occupancy rate. That would seem to reduce the traffic to roughly 2,000 sorties daily, but how can anyone in their right mind think that that isn't going to have an effect on the local traffic? It's especially secondary to putting in 2 roundabouts. It simply does not it defies common sense. In reading both the application for zoning change and the report by RKG Associates, I came across an interesting point which I hadn't heard from any of our city officials. Let me quote from NCDC's original zoning application. NCDC further intends to work with the railroad in an effort to bring a rail siding into Business Park North. And from the RKG assessment, conversations with representatives from NCDC suggest there may be a possibility of accessing rail, providing feasibility and completion of a spur line, but this remains to be determined. Well, that was the first I've heard of that. It would seem the only practical place for a railroad spur would be over in Taffville, but no use bringing that up at this time. I'm sure those folks won't mind a bit more tractor-trailer or train traffic in their area. When I first heard the representative from Bowler say that they were asking for a building height restriction of 80 feet, I thought it must be a mistake. But when I read the RKG report, it stated that wind turbine support towers require vertical construction and assembly and run 80 to 100 feet tall. It seemed to make more sense. Just for fun and everyone's pleasure, let me read section 2.11.1 of the Planned Development Design District Zoning Regulation, of which the project is presently zoned. PDD is a basis zoning district. The subject district is designed to provide a creative approach to development within the city and promote attractive planned development that complements natural, historic, and other resources. Somehow I'm not sure how an 80-foot building satisfies those guidelines. One other fine point, if wind turbine construction is an intended pursuit, has anyone contemplated how wide load trailers are going to be able to negotiate the 2 roundabouts? I'm hopeful it's all been thought out, but it certainly hasn't been communicated. Okay, so I'm nitpicking, and this is only about a zoning change. But it really isn't, is it? I applaud Mr. Brown and his staff for all the hard work they've done on this. I really do. I'm sure it hasn't been easy. But this zoning change is nothing more than another step in the whole process. Personally, I would be shocked if this whole thing didn't go through and get passed through at every level. You already have the permits. You've secured the okay to pursue loan funding for the land purchase. Mr. Brown has emphasized shovel-ready as premier importance. It all screams full steam ahead. So 3 of you have recused yourselves from voting on this as council members. That leaves 3 Democrats and 1 Republican. And unfortunately, since voting the party line in Norwich seems to be standard fare, it means that down the road, 1 Democrat needs to have the intestinal fortitude to put forth a motion to put the final vote on the construction of the road to a town-wide referendum. And if by some miracle that actually happens, NCDC needs to complete a short 4 to 5 page description of everything. A 3, 5, and 10-year cost analysis with supposed tax savings, traffic, jobs created, and my favorite, NPU's construction cost to the city. Yes, I know this is all supposed to be done with grant funding, but there will undoubtedly be cost to the taxpayers. There always is. Make the report concise and fully transparent and easily accessible to everyone. We deserve that as residents and taxpayers, so each of us can make an informed decision. This is not a project that the decision to go forward should rest with 3 people. I'll leave you with 2 last thoughts. I used to tell my kids when they were younger, just because you can do something doesn't necessarily mean you should. The potential for smokestacks, truck stops, and 80-foot-tall buildings on beautiful wooded land would seem to fall into that category. Mr. Brown has said that this is not a build it and they will come issue. I agree. It's a build it and let's hope to God they might show up. RKG's analysis says as much, and that expecting 65% occupancy over 9 years is defined as an aggressive position. Let's not enter into this endeavor with a pie-in-the-sky, can't-miss attitude, because that would be a mistake. And lastly, a cursory view of the internet reveals that not one city council member or one member of the NCD Board of Directors lives anywhere near this project. One can't help but wonder if 1 or 2 of you did, would we still be having this discussion? Thank you.
Thank you. Peggy Church.
Hi, good evening. Peggy Cherick, 252 Old Canterbury Turnpike. I live over in Sunny Waters, and I know that letters were sent out to property owners, and I believe the owner of the park received a letter notice about these meetings. Problem is, you got 120 families that actually own their mobile homes that a lot of them don't even know this is even happening. I've spoke to a lot of my neighbors, and now they know. We all know that this industrial park will be put in. Money and politics will make sure that it is. We're all kidding ourselves that it won't happen, unfortunately. Someone or a lot of people are in line to make a lot of money on this. During the planning of the layout of the area, please keep in mind that the people that reside on its borders, a 20-foot buffer is ridiculous. There was talk of nature walks and other walking areas in the plans. Why not make these walkways around the outer perimeter as a buffer of 200 to 300 feet? Plant trees, cover the area, protect that wildlife that are there. All the wildlife that you'll displace, keep their homes there. Place the taller building in the center. I know you want wind turbines. Hopefully, if that's what you want, you're going to get it. Place that building in the center. Show respect to the property owners live nearby. In the mobile home park that I live in, there's over 100 families that will be directly affected by this park. All of these families are registered voters and proud of where they have chosen to live. Show them respect and do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Kim Pilch. Okay, thank you. Scott Commissar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Alderman. Scott Commissar, 62 Ox Hill Road. Admittedly not in the affected neighborhood, but I did come to speak in favor of the proposed new business park, assuming that it is appropriately sized with appropriate buffers for the benefit of the neighbors in the immediate area. I've come to learn that the current business park is near capacity, and while the concerns of the neighbors are of course valid, and many of those have been very articulately expressed tonight, it's always about competing interests, and you've got to look out for the best interest of the town overall. The future of this town depends not only on increased job revenue, increased jobs for our citizens. We've got to be able to compete with the neighboring towns. If you look at the last 20 to 30 years in this region, all of the big development has occurred in places like Waterford, East Lyme. We're all old enough to remember when Lisbon Landing wound up in Lisbon because Norwich could not accommodate an area of that size. The future of this town, for the benefit of the current residents and the current business owners, depends on our ability to compete to attract new industry, new commerce. I would also encourage you to maximize the space in the current business park. I vaguely recall reading an article, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like I read somewhere that there is some existing space in the current business park that is not suitable for new development. If that's the case, we should raise it and build suitable space for new businesses. Same with other sites throughout town. We've got a lot of old dilapidated mill buildings sprinkled throughout downtown, for example. We've got to make better use of this. We've got to clean these up and make them ready for development. The future of our city depends on it. So that's all I wanted to say. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Chase Corcoran.
Good evening. My name is Chase Corcoran. I live at 465 Canterbury Turnpike. I am against the zoning change for the current proposed business park. I understand it's currently zoned for GC, and we're looking to change the zone into PDD. Just for everybody who doesn't understand what that means, GC means they can only develop 3-story high buildings with a 40,000 square footprint, including parking lots. By changing this zone to PDD, it will increase the building size substantially to 8 stories and a 240,000 square foot footprint, including driveways and parking lots. So that is going to ruin the site view for thousands of residents. I mean, you will see these buildings from Taffield to Versailles to Baltic. It's just going to destroy the entire neighborhood over there. Currently, Canterbury Turnpike area where I live is zoned for an R40 zone. Now, a bunch of my neighbors, their property lot sizes are about 1/4 of an acre to 1/3 of an acre size. So what that tells me is at one point in time, it was zoned for an R20. And the zoning board wants to change it to an R40. So why would we go from an R20 to an R40? Because we don't want the area to get overdeveloped. So now we're looking at changing the abutting properties to a PDD zone to an R40. So now we want to overdevelop it. It's unfortunate to a lot of the local residents in that area. And I'm here today because I care about my community and I care where I live. Mr. Brown is here tonight for a paycheck. I'd be surprised if he paid the city of Norwich $1. I paid the city of Norwich thousands of dollars because I care about it. So I think we need to look at other options. I don't think this is for that. NCDC is Norwich Community Development Corporation. But what are they doing for the community? Because the community is here tonight and we're speaking against it. It seems like they're more in favor of big business than the actual community. The state of Connecticut wanted to railroad 8 businesses and do roundabouts on the west side. Where was NCDC for those 8 businesses that were going to get their properties in eminent domain? What were they doing for them? Why are we not helping out the children? Where's the focus? Is the focus for big money? I get, some people get to take a fancy picture, hold a shovel, pretend they actually were in the construction industry, hang it up on their office wall, and that might mean something to them. But 10 years, 20 years down the road, the residents will still be there, looking at these obstructions that maybe we built an auxiliary road before the plan flopped. Maybe 2 buildings got built. Well, unfortunately, the taxpayers will be the one carrying this burden. I know everybody wants to have Norwich make the map, right? We want to be the biggest thing. Well, we've made the map. We have more homicides, shootings, stabbings, thefts, armed robberies. We're making the map. Trust me, people all over know about Norwich. And currently, it's not to come here. I understand NCDC made an achievement recently, and they got solar sail over to the current industrial park in Norwich. And if you look at solar sail, they have one job opportunity over there paying $17 to $22 an hour. Would any of you like to apply for that $17 an hour position? I wouldn't. They got $700,000 in grants to come from Massachusetts to Norwich. $700,000, that's a good amount to give one $17 an hour paying job. So at the end of the day, is that what we're gonna be looking at? We're gonna bend over to allow these businesses come into our town, our community, build these massive buildings, destroying our wildlife, for them to offer $17 an hour? What's minimum wage now, 15? And these are factories, these are labor-intensive jobs. I've done labor-intensive work. I wouldn't do it for $17 an hour. So you need to ask yourself, are you making the right decision if you change this zoning? Because trust me, there will be a lot of people that will remember this for years and years to come, not just tonight. So I appreciate all your time tonight, and I hope you all take this into consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Erica Chiaradio.
Erica Caradio, 538 Scotland Road. Please forgive me, I have a little bit of laryngitis. Many of the things that I have thought of over the past couple of weeks that I wanted to say or comment on have already been said by several of the people that have spoken. So I've kind of crossed things off here. A couple of the points that I'd like to make is I just don't understand how people, if you were 150 feet from the boundary line, that's when you were notified that all this was going on. And I just didn't think that that was responsible or realistic to think that if you were within 150 feet, you were going to be the only ones that were affected by this. This is a huge, huge operation. And I hear people, are talking about the future of Norwich and you know what, about growth and all that. Well, you know what, we're the present and the future of Norwich. Right here in this room, all of us. We pay a huge amount of tax burden. We pay to live where we live. There's a reason why we chose. We didn't have to come and live here. We didn't have to come to Norwich Town or this immediate surrounding area. It's there, just that we didn't move into, we knew we weren't moving into a, nature preserve or right next bordering a nature preserve. But we sure as hell didn't know that we were going to be looking at an industrial park. And as far as I understand the wildlife thing and all of that, there's so many more things in addition to the wildlife to be considered as far as the environment, the drainage runoff, and I know that all that is approved and all of that, but there's no way that building this kind of, an industrial park of this magnitude isn't going to affect all the people that are paying just thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in taxes every single year. Like, I don't know. I lost my place. But we were told at the meeting at the church that this industrial park was being planned to provide buildings for businesses producing parts and such, and manufacturing for a wind farm that might be built off the coast of New London. There's a lot of mights and maybes in there. And so many lives, and like the lives of just so many people, and not just us here today, but like our families, our children, our grandchildren, it's all going to be just destroyed. And all these other places that were named for potential sites for this project. I mean, these are the names of the towns that you hear on the news every single night: shootings, stabbings, muggings, robbings, whatever, robbing. It's just, we don't want that here. And thank you.
Thank you. Is Paul here? Sir? Again, please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Paul Caradio at 538 Scotland Road, and I signed up because I thought I was just signing up that I was at the meeting, but I will say something again. I spoke at the last meeting, you might remember my concerns with it. I have the concerns that everybody else does that's against this. But one of my big concerns is we're in 2022, ready to go into 2023, and I see as a business owner that the economy is shot. There's no more industry in this country. There's no more hoping that someday it's going to turn around, they're going to fly into Norwich, and we're going to be the best town or city in the state. So I totally understand that you guys are in a position, these companies are in a position, people are out to make money. We're in a position as homeowners and taxpayers of this town. I appreciate you extending the meeting from the last meeting to this meeting. That means you were listening to all of us people. We didn't all get to speak. You wanted to hear from everybody else. It meant a lot to me when I left that night that it got continued and it wasn't decided on that night. I'm not the answer, but I don't see putting another industrial park in Norwich going to make the town thrive and we're going to be the best town around, the city, excuse me. I pay a lot of taxes in this city, and I don't mind paying the taxes because I'm in a nice rural wooded area on Scotland Road, right at the end of Laurel Lane. I said last meeting I'm ready to buy more land closer to Laurel Lane. I really want to buy that land. I'm concerned with all the empty buildings in this city, everywhere, not just the downtown, or there's empty buildings, little buildings, big buildings, all kinds of empty industry buildings or buildings that could give people jobs. They've all closed. We know that it's a tough time. Businesses go out, the internet is taken over a lot. You go to other places, malls are empty, stores are shut down. There's a lot going on online, overseas. The wind turbine, I really don't have any education on it, so I can't really speak on it. It's not there right now. It's not going to go there because Norwich has a building to work on it, in my opinion. I just hope all these people that come to these meetings and speak to you guys, maybe it could make an effect. It doesn't have to be shot down forever, but at this time, I think that this really needs to be put on hold and thought about for a real long time. I'm not the only one that thinks that way. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone here who would like to give new evidence to us to listen to at this time? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm Paul Whitescarver. I'm the Executive Director for the Southeastern Connecticut Enterprise Region at 19B Thames Street in Groton. I represent the Economic Development Organization for the region. And I wanted to come and bring some positive comments about my affiliation with NCDC over the last year concerning Business Park North. It was one of 8 projects that we submitted to the Economic Development Administration for the development of an offshore wind industry cluster, of which would support the Biden's administration's 30 gigawatt mandate for offshore wind. Now, how does that impact us? You know, as an economic development organization executive, my concern is creating high-paying jobs, i.e. shifting people from the service sector with making less than $40,000 to $35,000 a year to organization and manufacturing where you're looking at $95,000 to $100,000 a year. How do I improve the quality of life for people in this region, and more specifically in Norwich itself? So the econometric studies that we did to submit to the EDA for Business Park North showed that with the investment that we had submitted with $22 million, you're going to look at probably close to $750 million in construction that you're going to see in your area just to support the build-out of Business Park North. What does that mean for jobs? It means over 1,000 jobs created just for the Norwich area, and if you were to look at the industry itself with the mandate and what we had proposed for $60 million investments in this region, of close to a peak of 9,000 jobs over the next 10 years with a steady state creation of 6,000 jobs. Not just for Norwich, but for this entire region. Business Park North is a catchment. It's a catchment for the entire region, goes into Rhode Island, all the way up to the northeast part of the state, over to the west and to here. And it's a great and magnificent way to diversify the industries that we have in this area so that it's not just specific to the defense industry and electric boat. This is a great opportunity for this region. It's a great opportunity to improve the quality of life for many, many people, not just in Norwich, but for the region. So I'm here as a proponent. I've heard all the comments tonight, and my heart goes out to the people that think that they're going to lose something. But if you were to look at the way that NCDC has constructed this area and put it together with rain gardens, with electric vehicle charging stations, with solar panels, they've tried to create an environment there that is friendly to the environment. And it's a great benefit for Norwich itself. I appreciate and thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Beryl Fishbone, I think you had your hand up.
Sorry. Beryl Fishbone, 19 Bliss Place. I can't say that I'm for the new business park. I can't say that I'm against it either. Norwich definitely needs some new business. But I'm not sure that we have the right design and that we're looking as far into the future as is really needed. A place where they can where they can manufacture the windmills, the blades, they've been doing it for a long time. They've been looking for new contracts. Too little, too late. Also, you've got it so that it's a too small, confined area. The blades are huge, they're massive. Even to get them tested, they still have to take off 50 feet to get into the current testing facility. That's a long blade. And you think it can go around corners? That took a 12-man crew. Think about what it is that you're going after. Think about maybe a 4-story buildings. Think about also, when the presentation was made, you spoke about, or the engineers spoke about having, being the roads and the area up to current standards. That's a problem. Because our current standards are still behind the times. If we look around to the places that are successful, we look like antiques. Our current standards don't meet their needs. We really need to take a look at the area and see what we can do so that not only is there nature trails for the employees to take a break from their work, and for the animals to live, and live safely, so that it fits into the neighborhood. But you've also got to have bike, bus. You do remember that we're coming into the age of mass transit. Those are important. That means that that little 2-lane road isn't going to be wide enough. You've also got to remember that there's going to be other commuter traffic. How is it going to get there? How are they going to park it? And where is the runoff going to be? What kind of soil are you going to be using for these new area parking lots? I live by Bacchus Hospital. Anybody want to discuss flooding with me? Not a fun issue, because we don't have any open water. It's because of poor planning that was done that created wonderful parking lots and buildings, one of which we're standing on, that created a problem years down the road. You've got to look at what the area looks like, how it's going to be impacted, and also, how many trees are going to be lost? How much growth is going to be lost? Your plan sounds really nice. Unfortunately, it's in the wrong place. It's got to be re-examined, and it might help to look at the future. And if you want some names, addresses, some contacts, I have them, I'm willing to share, and they're willing to help. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Good evening, Jessica Quay, 321 Old Canterbury Turnpike. I'm a little emotional tonight, so hopefully I can get through this. I just want to share that I see some of my neighbors out here, but I don't see a lot of them because I live in a community where we're the youngest people there. Besides Chase, he's kind of like diagonal for me. We have a lot of older people in our neighborhood, sorry. And I kind of have always chuckled with people when they ask where I live because I'm like, oh, we're the youngest people there. It's so quiet. There's no kids on our road. But you know what there is? There's Joan and Tom who live right next door to me who take a walk around the loop every day, unless it's like 100 degrees. But I live on Old Canterbury. They take their time going down. They cross over like Annandale, and they go down old regular Canterbury Turnpike, come around by Mr. Pan's. Now, you know, they are getting older. It's probably not going to be too much longer that they can do that. But honestly, they can walk that road better than I can. So I don't know how long it will be. But you know what will be so sad? is that my children, this is so stupid. My children come and run to me and say, "Hey Mom, Joan and Tom are outside. Can I go say hi?" That's the kind of community that we need. We need to talk to our neighbors. Joan and Tom, they see my kids almost every day. They don't have family that come and see them that often. If they're not walking, they're not having the quality of life that they deserve. A lot of the people on my road have lived there for a long time. If we go forward and we do this, the quality of life that they had for their whole life, where they raise their children, where their grandkids come to play in their yards, it's changed. I would wish that you guys would take the time to think about this, really think about it. Really listen to the people that are speaking to you. And truthfully, it should be a townwide vote. This shouldn't be up to just you guys. None of you live there, literally. Somebody researched you all. Nobody lives there. Our mayor himself, he doesn't have an industrial park in his backyard. We know where he lives. I think that's it. Thank you for listening to us.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Yes, sir.
Hi, Steve Browning, 671 Scotland Road. I spoke at the last meeting, so I'll keep my remarks very short. Not only is our farm share 4 common borders with this proposed park, because we don't have a straight line, so we are immediately and definitely impacted by this development. To one side, a potential solar field running right up against the area where we have a well. To the other side, in a schematic, a 500,000-foot square building dumped right on the edge of our power lines. Not our power lines, on a field. You know, if they do drop that building where they are, they're going to impact drainage for an entire valley. I don't even want to guess the size of the containment pool that they're going to have to build. So this is not an abstract issue for us. This is a very real issue, and it deals with quality of life. When I hear what a lot of people are saying at this meeting, they have hopes for this parcel, and they don't want to see it totally paved over. And you could kind of sum it up as passive recreation. I do know that previous development proposals, they were putting in a very large, I'm thinking of a golf course in the development years ago. They're going to put in a lot of green space around the development. They weren't going to just jam buildings up right on the borders. And I think that's one of the things that has people so concerned. I also think when the person who was handling regional development, unfortunately he's not here anymore, was talking, he was talking about all the construction jobs. We just see that as more traffic running in and out of our neighborhoods, all across Scotland Road, Lawler Lane, Canterbury Turnpike. And I feel terrible for the people who live in that trailer park. That's going to be very difficult. I think in Norwich, we always think about, okay, what can we build? But the community that I lived in for a couple decades before I came back to Norwich, Tolland, they made it a point when people had packages of land up, they would sometimes buy these areas and create green space. So they thought just as much about quality of life as industrial development. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak this, please?
Hello, Jeanette Witt, 511 Canterbury Turnpike. I just have one question. When I was here standing 2 weeks ago, I asked if any of you, or did you know anyone, that would be impacted by this plan, and there was no response. At that time, I asked and I urged you all, with the plans and maps that you received, would you take an hour out of your day and come down those streets and neighborhoods? I invited you to our home to come down our driveway so you could see where all of these abutments are going to be and how it will destroy us. Did anyone take that time and come see? That is so sad. We elected you to protect us, to protect our communities. And it's very evident to me that none of you are doing that. You get elected, and you're not taking care of us. You just do whatever the hell you want. Thank you.
Excuse me. Those kinds of meetings could not take place because we're still operating in the public hearing process, and all comments have to be done in a recorded fashion like we're doing tonight. That's why I know why I didn't, because I'm not allowed to do that. There's a legal process we have to follow as the zoning board. But I can't engage in a back and forth. I wanted you to understand why someone here wouldn't have done that. We're not allowed to do that in the zoning process. Most towns have a planning and zoning board. The elected people are not the zoning board. I wish that's the way the city was, but that's not the way it is. That's a whole other discussion. Thank you. Charlie, are you looking to? Oh, okay, okay. Any other people wish to speak at this gentleman in back? And then.
Hi, my name is Donald Supranat. I live on 43 Wales Road. I spoke at the last meeting too, but it concerns me this gentleman talking about the amount of jobs. Having worked on construction, I know that most of the people that are going to build these buildings are going to be coming from every part of the state or even other states, and they're going to be temporary help. A building is usually now put up in a year or less. So there are not permanent jobs. Those are jobs that are going to be taken from anywhere, not just Norwich. So that's a big factor. I don't know how many jobs there will be with the manufacturing, but I don't believe it's going to be either paid what this gentleman was talking about or the amount of jobs. And the other thing is, one of the young ladies spoke and said about, the animals and the wildlife. And at the last meeting, I had said that Mohegan Park, they had done the same thing. The town bought the property and it's used for general public use. I think you could do the same thing here. It could be used for general public use, and I don't think the ecology would be affected as much as it's going to be as if you had these buildings in there. They talked about runoff. Oh yeah, you can handle runoff in the wetlands, but they're not telling you what's going to go into that runoff now. There's going to be a big factor with the products that they're doing. And also, like we spoke about before, these companies are not going to be worrying about the time trucks come in. They're not going to care about the families that live around there. It's going to be business as usual, and that means trucks moving in and out, the amount of trucks and people coming in and out for the business is going to be unbelievable. And that's going to impact these people greatly. So I'm totally against this thing. I want Norwich to have jobs, but I don't believe this is a good place for it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Philbrook?
Joanne Philbrook, Elm Avenue, Norwich. I want to thank the people that got up tonight and spoke. These are the people that elected you. And when I say you, I don't necessarily mean all of you. If the shoe fits, wear it. There is a problem in this city. And the people have alluded it to on several levels this evening. You're all about kissing the babies and patting the voters on the back when you want to get elected, and then you forget. You forget that these are our lives that are impacted. I have said it before. I made a choice to come here. I came from one of the most pristine corners in this country, Martha's Vineyard. And I chose to come to Norwich. If I had to do it over again, I wouldn't even wave at you on my way by. Because this city has been on life support for the 18 years that I have been here. I have seen the promises come and go. But I will sum up by saying, this to me is déjà vu all over again. You had a chance to listen to the people about the fire ordinance. You didn't listen. You had people come here 2 times and ask you, please, don't do this to us. Don't change our quality of life. You have the right to, and again, somebody said, just because you can do something doesn't mean you have to do it. So think about it. And not in my backyard nonsense, I couldn't agree with it more. Stop. Please, I have appeared before you and have tried every single mechanism, being nasty, being submissive, being aggressive, being realistic, and you still don't listen. You don't listen to me, you don't listen to them. There's something wrong here. So NCDC now has been given the authority to enter into some sort of an agreement, and again, you'd have to be an urban planner to understand half of the crap that you read in these presentations. So now this month, so they're going to borrow this money. These properties will then, I assume, and if nobody can answer me because of the charter, you can't talk about zoning because of the charter, and you won't open the charter because the Democrats don't want to talk about it. So we're stuck again, batting our heads against the wall, and we will never move forward. But the people have come to you tonight and asked you again, do please at least put this on hold. How about you put it on hold until after Mr. Wilson vacates his seat and you have a special election, which could go either way. It could change the entire dynamics of the council. But if you don't listen to the people, there will come a time, and I don't mean this as a threat, I mean this as a factual statement. There will come a time when people will say, enough is enough, and they will start causing, as John Lewis liked to say, it's time for some good trouble. So you have the authority and the responsibility tonight to say, we are going to table this. And then we can get more information. You can do informationals. You can send out information to abutters. I would like to see, I have never seen the requirements. When I lived on the vineyard, if you were going to do a project, you had to send out an abutters list. And everybody within a certain circumference had to be notified by certified mail. I'd like to know how many of these people receive certified mail. So again, I'll be quiet because I'm going to talk about something else later on that's going to be really emotional. But I ask you to consider that the people have asked you, please do not make this change tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone would like to address the council at this time? Sir? Yep. Please, miss.
Kevin Horton, 15 Wales Road. How are you guys doing this evening? Coming to see how local government works. It's my first time at one of these meetings. Me and the wife moved to Wales Road a couple years ago. We like it for the tranquility. The reason why we're okay with paying very high taxes is because of this. We got a peaceful neighborhood. I go to work. I'm in industry. Diesel mechanic industry. I understand industry, but I don't understand how responsible is it for a group or individuals to build more when you can't maintain what you have. That doesn't make any sense. So I like you to, you're sitting on a toilet, you're in front of the TV, you're eating a bowl of Cheerios, whatever you're doing, think about that. If you can't maintain what you have, a lot of people have spoken about businesses in Norwich, and I lived in Norwich years ago. We moved back, been just working and working and working just to get this piece of, I call it paradise there on Wales Road. And they want to build another industrial park. There's already an industrial park. That's not the answer, as most of us here are opposing that. Don't build if you can't maintain what you got. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Please.
Jan Swain at 506 Canterbury Turnpike. I was here last time, too. I cannot believe some of the things that I have heard tonight that other people have not been aware of, but some people are very good at research. They know what they're looking for, the whole bit. And the only thing I'm going to tell you is if you think putting a traffic light down on 97 to reroute traffic up and around through wherever is going to make a difference on Canterbury Turnpike, Laurel Land, or Scotland Road, then you're dreaming somewhere else that I don't know where the hell you are. But anyways, I'm just really quite pissed at the fact that some of the things that are being said tonight, the people that are going to be affected have not been aware of. So if you can't just move this thing off your list of things to do, people sitting behind me, they could give 2 bits less of what the hell went on at Canterbury Turnpike, Laurel Lane, or Scotland Road, because they're not going to live there. None of you are going to live there. There is property on Laurel Lane that can be built on, right on Laurel Lane, that I would really urge each and every one of you to put in bids on this land and build your house there, your dream house, and then turn around and watch the crap that you want to put in across the street from you. I am so disgusted with what's going on tonight that when I end this, I'm walking out of here, because if it came to a vote for you people who are running, I wouldn't vote for any of you, none of you, because I don't think you're listening to anybody that lives in that area at all. And if you think it's a piece of cake, come on, I'll sell you my house. You can live on Canterbury Turnpike. It's a nice little house, 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, about half an acre of land. You come in, you make me a bid, you can live in my house, I'll move out, and then you can sit and watch the traffic. And if you think this is going to happen overnight, nah. That traffic's going to be around for 2 or 3 years because you got to build a road, you got to change this, you got to change something else. So that traffic is just going to be there. If it ever gets built, well, okay, there'll be even more traffic going by and whatever. But you just got to, we've got to put a stop to this, put more thought into it, do whatever you have to do. But for God's sakes, please don't put that damn thing up there.
Thank you. Anyone like to speak at this time? Please.
Hi, Edie Piscatelli from 44 Wales Road. Hopefully I'll get through tonight without losing my voice from fear. I just want to start off by saying that I approached the city for the packet regarding this package because in the last meeting, as I stated to you, I was not informed until I got a registered letter. I knew nothing about this project. When I went to the city, I was told it was going to cost me 50 cents a page and $5 per map. So I went home and I printed out some stuff myself. I read through everything, I highlighted a lot of things, and a lot of things have already been discussed here tonight. But what I came across in this is a lot of, this will happen if this can happen. This will happen if this can happen. There's a lot of what ifs in this. I read through the thing where they're talking about the traffic and the amount of people, and they're like, well, on average, 109 cars during peak hours. That leaves another 800 for off-peak hours. Everything in here is just misleading. Tonight, when I don't know who the gentleman was, but mentioning these high-priced jobs, I called the state of Connecticut. I have friends there. I talked to them in the Labor Department. And Connecticut is already one of the highest paid manufacturing job states in the whole United States. And the figures he's talking about are not true. We are averaging about $14 an hour in manufacturing jobs for the kind of people that, according to this proposal, are going to take them and going to work them. So we're not talking about six-figure salaries here. Maybe a couple of their friends, maybe a couple of people you know might be making 6 figures there, but that's not going to be the average pay. Him talking about people taking the jobs, how it's going to help surrounding areas. I get that, because most of the people that are going to take these jobs are going to be people that don't live in Norwich. They're going to be commuters, just like we commute to EB. It's going to happen. But the problem with that is we already have over 4,000 people, or 4,000 jobs in this area that people aren't taking, nobody wants. And we have people here in higher numbers that are unemployed who won't even take the jobs that are available. I get that we need to fix Norwich. I was born here. I've lived here a long time. I don't have any desire to stay here. I go to Mystic for things. I go to other areas for things because Norwich can't get out of its own way. It can't fix itself. You talk about bringing industry here. There's all kinds of jobs that could be brought here that could help and benefit everybody who lives here, and they don't have to be industrialized because I don't care what you say and how many times you say it about the current industrial park being at maximum capacity, because we all know it is not. I myself drove through there and took pictures of over 14 buildings that are unoccupied. We had a gentleman mention the other day about we have a ball field now because if we build it, they will come. They came and they went. We don't even still have a ball team. We still got an empty ball field. And like he said, yes, it's costly to redo all these empty buildings, all these rundown places in Norwich, but you can't just keep building and letting it fall. You bring in businesses with tax decreases and everything else and incentives, and then as soon as the incentives are gone, they're gone. And that's been the history with Norwich. And you guys really need to step back and look at it and say, what would bring people to Norwich? You know, other places have managed to figure it out. We should be able to figure it out too. Our downtown is still a mess. All the money, all the funds, everything we do, yes, it's a little bit lively. We open a business here, we open a little business there, but you don't see people saying, oh, let's go to downtown Norwich. your focus is wrong, and the focus shouldn't be on let's ruin a neighborhood, first of all, and let's build these industrialized buildings in the hopes that it's all going to get filled. It's not. We are not that hub. Norwich has plenty of other benefits, and you guys really need to start looking at making the most of those and improving other things so that more people like us who are homeowners, who are taxpayers, who choose to live here, whether we work here or not, we still choose to live here. So if you've got people who want to live here, even if they have to drive 45 minutes for work, that should tell you something that this city has stuff to offer, and it can bring in revenue without loading other people's pockets and destroying what little bit of peace and tranquility we have in this city. You know, I read through some of your old charters and stuff, and every single one started off since we incorporated a mayor. We want to preserve space. We want to preserve the naturalness. We want to preserve neighborhoods. And I just keep seeing more and more neighborhoods getting evacuated or left or deprived or broken down and stuff. I don't see us fixing what, like the other gentleman said, what we already have. So I just think that to go and tear down more and destroy more and just create more waste that is going to backfire on us just like the other projects have. The marina project didn't work out well. The municipal project didn't work out well. We do all these great things. The baseball didn't work out well. We have ideas, but people need to really think them through. And I think that you guys on this council, you need to spend a little bit more time in the neighborhoods that you're addressing. You need to look around the city and see where we can actually fix things and build things and make some changes. But tearing down one of the last little areas that was been designated farmland and country land and naturalness. And when I think about the wetlands, I haven't gotten to the wetlands thing yet because I haven't been able to get a copy from the city yet. But I'd love to know how that got passed, because when we were building our homes on those very same wetlands, we had so many restrictions, it was unbelievable what we couldn't do with those wetlands. Suddenly, you can build mega infrastructures on them. So I'm going to get it. I haven't gotten it yet, but I will get it, because I'm curious to see how all of a sudden this company can build on all this stuff where I know there are beavers in there because I took a beaver to the wildlife thing when it got hit by a car on that road. I know that, you know, the whole area, we hike around it all the time. It's a natural, it's like one of the last natural places, because even in Mohegan Park now, the animals there end up getting destroyed because they're surrounded by all kinds of industrialists. There's no place for them to go, and they can't survive on what little food and stuff they have there. So it's like when you guys talk about preserving a neighborhood and you talk about preserving our green space and everything else, then you shouldn't be talking about this. This should not even be on the table for us. There's plenty of other ways for Norwich to make money. You guys just have to listen to the people in the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak at this time? Anyone else like to speak at this time? Oh, please, sir.
Reiner Beckman, 210 Old Canterbury Turnpike. I don't have much more to say than what's already been said, but it's the last beautiful spot in Norwich. There isn't any, that's why they want to build there, because there isn't any other open space. My family's been from Occam from a long time, since before the highway was even there. My grandfather came up with the bull to get the cow pregnant at the farm that was there. I have grain bags going back 80 years from that farm. It's the only thing that makes Norwich beautiful are the trees, are the fact that we have a little bit of open space. You get rid of that, there's no reason, at least for me, to be here. And I have to make that decision soon if I'm going to stay. The other thing I wanted to say, as far as like what I've been witnessing here, the little I know about NCDC, somebody once asked me if I wanted to open up a business in downtown Norwich. I almost fell over laughing. My slogan for downtown Norwich is, it's a place where hope goes to die. That's how I feel about downtown Norwich. I don't utilize it at all. I'm only down there maybe for the Rose Arts like once a year. I live in this town. I don't go down there. That's why when people come to our houses and they look and they're like, wait, are we still in Norwich? And you tell them, yeah, they're surprised. Norwich has a problem, a big problem. And what you guys want to do is come screw with us. And we're happy. And I don't get it. Like, it has such a bad reputation. I don't want to go down there. I go down there fishing. Within 5 minutes, I got somebody coming up to me trying to get money from me because I want to take a couple casts in the harbor. And I don't have a problem with homeless people. I don't have a problem with drug addicts. But Norwich is like, the downtown area is freaking creepy. It's always been creepy. It's still creepy. And if you don't drink, there's nothing down there for you. So leave us alone.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to speak at this time? Bruce?
I've listened to everything. I've agreed with a lot of people.
Please, at the microphone again.
Okay.
Name and address, please.
Bruce McCaddy, 23 Wales Road. I've agreed with what a lot of people have said. The only two people that spoke really for it, well, there were three, but the two people that spoke for it are financially looking at gain for themselves, not for the people that live around there. You're taking an area that people have lived in their whole life. I've lived in this town 68 years, and I've lived on Scotland Road, Canterbury Turnpike, and I live on Wales Road now. And you're trying to take it away. We've all paid the taxes that you guys have set us for, which have been higher than a lot of people in town. We're willing to pay it. We want to live there. But you guys haven't looked at anything as far as traffic. Occam, you're going to try to take an 18-wheeler down there to turn around. You're trying to take one down Canterbury Turnpike. You're going to try to take one down Scotland Road. Because these little turnabouts that they say are going to work, they're not going to work. They got to be big enough so a fire truck can go around them. Seems that an 18-wheeler can probably go around them. And they're going to someday end up on our roads. So we're going to have, I don't know, 1,000, 3,000 people that are actually going to be using the side roads once they turn their map system on their phone to get shortcuts because they don't like the traffic going in the main entrance. And you're telling me right away they only have one main entrance. So there's nothing that seems to be planned out on this. All this is hearsay of what might be. And I think if you guys remember, we had an amusement park that was going to be built, and the whole town turned over backwards for that. The whole town, a couple of times, has been bought because Foxwoods is going to buy all downtown Norwich. It's going to be wonderful. There's all this like belief that people are going to come and save the town. Well, you got to do your research before it. You can't just take these studies and not look at the wildlife, not look at the traffic count, not look at what real life is happening in that area. And I hope that the council looks at some of that before they make their decision tonight. And I would really, I don't know if it can happen, but I would like to see a citywide vote on it because it's going to affect all of Norwich Town. And I think that's a pretty large part of Norwich. And I would like to see people vote on it. I would like to have it more than just the council vote on it, but I don't know if that's possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak at this time? Anyone else like to speak at this time? Is there any other member of the public who would like to speak at this time? Okay, this time, Mr. Brown.
Good evening, Kevin Brown, President of NCDC at 66 Franklin, and I'm joined again this evening by our counsel for NCDC, Attorney Mark Block, and our project engineer from Bowler Engineering, Jeff Board. I will probably not be able to stick to my written comments because there's been a lot said here tonight. And I'd just like to look at this assembled crowd and tell you that I know this is difficult for you, and you may not believe that I'm listening or that we're listening, but we are. All I can ask of you is to just show the grace to really believe it when I tell you that we're listening to you. My answers might not answer your questions. My answers might answer some of your questions. Just asking you to know that we are listening and we do care. So I'll stick with reason. I'll go to some facts, If you'll forgive, I might go to emotion because there's an awful lot of accusation that this group of folks doesn't care about what happens in Norwich. And frankly, personally, that's a little bit offensive to me. And then I'll end with reason, the reason that we're doing this. So the first step of reason, and I'd like to leverage something that the young lady back here said, I don't see her. She said it was a bunch of what ifs, and I will be the first to admit, in fact, that is exactly correct. This is a contingent approval. This is a conceptual contingent approval that is only intended to help us achieve one thing, be able to go out and see the what ifs. If we don't take this step, which is simply to approve a conceptual plan for an arterial road, which, by the way, does take care of a lot of the traffic concerns, that's all we're really seeking. Every other parcel on the plan that you've seen is just conceptual placement. And in each case, the wetlands that we went out and walked every inch of, Mr. Board and I, have been protected purposefully because of the reasons that some of you folks brought up. There is no development plopped down on any of the wetlands. It is built around the wetlands purposefully. And the catchment basements have been built out to ensure that there's runoff into those areas. And the future development that might occur on those parcels will have to come back before this body for a second look to make sure that it does in fact meet all of the same concerns that you have right now. Those white boxes, here's a short way of putting everything I just said. Those white boxes are just there to ensure that we're carving out the land that we need so that the road that we put in makes sense. The road that we're trying to put in makes sense. Now, as far as the zoning, this gentleman over here said that it's currently GC and we're trying to move it to PDD. That is not correct. And we often have to sit here and listen to facts be purported as facts when they're wrong. I mean, it happens on both sides of this conversation. There's no question in my mind. But that's not true. Part of it is zoned GC, but the majority of it is already zoned PDD. This is not a conversation about nor a decision for you to move the zoning from GC to PDD. Those two zones stay as they are presently today. We're not making that up. Those are the zoning. That is the zoning for that parcel, those parcels right now. General commercial and PDD. What we're proposing is an overlay over the top of that allows us to come up with a business plan that we can then turn to the commercial business world and say, would you consider siting in this location? At which time, those tenants would have to come back before this public and this body for that site plan to be approved. So that's the reason that we're here and the thing that we're doing, and those are the facts of it. Other facts that I want to make clear are that we did in fact listen, and this one is a repeat from the last time, but we were told that there were concerns about crossing Lawler Road, and so we terminated the arterial road at Lawler Lane, excuse me, and so it stops there. And to the gentleman who referenced the RKG report with a 65% potential saturation, that just plays right into the fact that we are looking at this in a measured approach. This is not, somebody took my words, build it and they will come, and use them against me. In fact, what I was telling you folks is we will not make that mistake. We are not doing a build it and they will come. This is not built on spec, as is said. The 65% saturation suggests that those parcels that on the other side of Lawler Road perhaps don't have the demand in the next 9 years, and so that can be deferred. So we terminated at Lawler Road. Public spoke and we listened. The public spoke and said these 20-foot buffers aren't going to cut it, and so we have more than doubled the buffer around each of these conceptual parcels to 50 feet. So we took that into account and we listened. Then finally, and importantly, because a design parameter was spoken about here and is in the documents for this plan of 80 feet, it seemed that what happened is there was a ripple throughout the community thinking, okay, every building is going to be 80 feet tall, and that is absolutely not the case nor the plan. That's a parameter. That's an upper end. The fact of the matter is, for those parcels that are currently in what is currently zoned general commercial, there's a stipulation that they would not be over 4 stories. Now, one person took to the mic and said 4 stories would be enough. Another person took to the mic and said 4 stories is too much. You folks can have that argument out in the front room, But we listened to the 80 feet thing, and we want to make sure that you understand that doesn't mean that every building will be built to 80 feet. So those are three things we came in here prepared to address and talk about based on what happened at the last meeting. Some other facts, though, that are important is that experts have, in fact, on the matter of wetlands, on the matter of traffic, on the matter of historical preservation, and on the matter of environmental impact, done the assessments. They carry those credentials. I don't carry those credentials. These are folks who do this for a living and have given us the clean bill of health, that the plan as presented does not have negative impacts on those 4 areas. And then just to clarify one last thing, and that is this matter about wind turbines. And I completely understand how this kind of takes off on its own. Folks, we aren't looking to build wind turbines out there at this industrial park. That's going to happen at the State Pier down in London on the other side of the bridge so they can put that stuff together in a large laydown yard and float it out into the ocean. When you talk about the offshore wind industry, when you say wind turbine, that doesn't describe that whole tall podium and the blades on it. It's that big machine, that big engine that sits at the top. It's called a nacelle. That nacelle has 8,000 parts in it. And what we're talking about building in the industrial park are those parts inside of that big engine. It's as if we were building a Sikorsky engine or the parts for it here in Norwich. We're not building the 300-foot blades or the 400-foot tall podiums here, or trying to turn them around in roundabouts or any of those kinds of things. So I just wanted to make sure that I could clarify some of those factual things that sometimes get misspoken here at the podium. If I could just go to a motion for a second. So on more than one occasion now, 3 I think, folks have suggested that we don't care about the city of Norwich. We don't have any ties. My first paying job was at 47 Franklin Street at Thames Hardware, stocking parts when I was a kid. I lived on Melrose Park. I lived on Star Street. I'm losing track. I lived, where else did I live in Norwich? I've lived all over Norwich. I delivered the Norwich Bulletin as a kid. My dad was in service. He fought 3 wars for this country. He was an NFA graduate. He met my mom at NFA. My mom from the Mohegan tribe, who had to truck up here to the big city to go to high school. The Mohegan tribe, the same tribe that ironically this neighborhood of Ockham is named for. Samson Ockham was the first ordained minister of Native American tribes in New England, and he ministered to all of the tribes of southern New England, to include out on the islands in the Sound. Samson Ockham is who this neighborhood is named for, my Mohegan ancestor. My grandson is named Samson after Samson Ockham. So, look, let me not make that sound any more emotional than it is. No, I don't live there now. But I just ask that you simply don't suggest or allege that we don't care about the city of Norwich or this neighborhood. Back to reason. The reason we're doing this was also alluded to here at the podium tonight. I don't even remember if it was a pro comment or an against comment. I think both cases brought this up and just looked at it differently. The reason we're doing this is because this is a tax-burdened community, and developing business that generates real estate and property taxes and utility revenues back to the city of Norwich lessens the tax burden on everyone in the city. And that's why we're doing this. And we're doing it here because trying to reallocate or reutilize the stock in downtown Norwich does not help build the kinds of future technological locations that are required for industry. There's a decent argument to be made for the Stanley Israelite Industrial Park, granted. But for those that would argue that it's not full, it is mostly full. And again, to recapitalize all those spots that are pigeonholed throughout that park, to shop that to a future developer just doesn't make sense. And so that's why we're going here. And to close, we're going here because, and it was mentioned, someone made reference to the Great Lisbon Landing escape or whatever, that it went next door when it couldn't come to fruition here. Folks, this is another one of those opportunities. this is another one of those opportunities. There are 5 sites that Advanced CT, the business development marketing arm for the state of Connecticut, has listed as premier locations where they want to bring business to the state of Connecticut. Norwich, East Hartford, Windsor, Waterbury, and Newtown. We're on that list. And if we decide that we don't want to take this simple step to approve a conceptual overlay plan that allows us to continue to plan, not put a shovel in the ground yet, not spend $1, just say that we're willing to entertain this concept of having this industrial park here, then we're already out of the race. And you've got Lisbon Landing #2, because Norwich steps aside and those other 4 towns achieve that development and achieve that tax revenue. At this time, I'll be followed by Attorney Mark Block, who will go into the details of the language of the ordinance as presented and some of the other details.
Thank you, Kevin. Mark Block, Counsel to NCDC. Just as an aside, my history with this project goes back
Mark,
several
could you please
years.
bring the microphone down? I want to make sure everyone can hear, please.
My history with this project goes back several years when Jason Vincent was living and working for NCDC. This was his vision. I began working on this with Jason Vincent, and he and I, mostly him, put together the business master plan ordinance as it was gelled, and the area that was going to accompany and be presented to the council as the district. There are certain matters, I've taken the emotion out of what Kevin said, but there are certain matters which need to be stressed and others which need to be put in the record. This, as has been reiterated, is a zone change only, does not give any approval for construction of anything, does not even give permission to construct the road. Today, we don't have the funding for it. We're looking for approval of the road and approval of the concept plan. This has been found to be consistent with the plan of conservation and development. Section 3.11 of the ordinance was created specifically with this property in mind. To reiterate, the context in which the master plan district and the master plan are being approved are found in 3.112.1, 3.11.2.2, and 3.11.4.1. I could read this into the record, but the ordinance is in the record already, and I won't take the council's time in reading these provisions in the record, but they do provide for the approval of the master plan, which is not a substitute for the detailed requirements associated with a site plan, but only needs to provide sufficient information for this council to determine whether the proposal is in conformance with the plan of conservation and development and in conformance with the ordinance itself. Any substantial and material alteration of the plan must come back to this council. This council does not lose jurisdiction over this. And finally, master plan approval and establishment of the zone by the city council. Each development must be presented to the commission on the city plan for approval. Now, there has much been made about whether this ordinance should supplant the present zoning. And I'd like to read into the record an excerpt from an article that I found differentiating between what a master plan is and what a zoning ordinance is. The master plan is a land use and infrastructure plan that sets forth local goals, objectives, and policies for community growth and/or redevelopment over the next 20 to 30 years. It has sometimes been referred to as a comprehensive plan, future land use plan, basic plan, general plan, and other terms. The master plan serves as the basis for the local zoning ordinance, zoning regulations, and other land use regulations, and for ensuring that capital improvements are consistent with the community goals and policies expressed in the master plan. The relationship between the master plan and a zoning ordinance is often misunderstood. The master plan is merely a guide for land use for the future, and the zoning ordinance regulates the use of land for the present. And with that background, and with that in mind, the city has created this master plan district ordinance, which restricts the uses of properties within this district to uses consistent with the development of the district. So what we present by this application for your consideration is a proposed ordinance. Now, I've taken the liberty of drafting a proposed ordinance for your consideration. Mrs. Barrett? If I might. Did I present? Mrs. Barrett, can I see what I gave you for that? This proposed ordinance includes certain usage from the existing zoning ordinance, which reflect changes that we made to the application because Section 3.11 requires that the applicant include any existing uses that the applicant wishes to include in the master plan district. So for that reason, we have included in the proposed ordinance business, corporate, and professional offices, healthcare, technology, research industries, advanced medical equipment, pharmaceuticals, and biotechnology facilities, government buildings, car wash facilities as part of a truck stop, clinical and medical offices, and public utility facilities. So what this ordinance reflects are uses that were consistent with what was in the original Business Master Plan District Ordinance, plus these 6 uses, which were mentioned the first time, and I know that there were questions about what those uses were. So it's specifically included. I've read them to you. So we would request that the proposed ordinance, if it passes, include these uses. The proposed ordinance lists all the properties that are included within the Business Master Plan District. It includes a reference to the zoning map amendment plan. And as I said, it also includes a finding amending the map of the city of Norwich. We would also like to present for your consideration an approval So should you vote in favor of the approval of this application, we are suggesting that this approval be considered, and we have specifically conditioned this approval on certain findings that take into consideration changes that we've made, having heard comments from the third-party reviewer and having heard comments from the members of the public. So we'd like our master plan conditioned on the following. A, architectural design for each building constructed within the business master plan district is subject to approval as per section 3.11.5.2. Street lighting be consistent with section 3.11.5.5. And as Mr. Brown reiterated, minimum front, side, and rear yards would be 20 feet, front yard, 20-foot side yard, 20-foot rear yard, except that in the event any parcel adjoins a residentially zoned property, the minimum buffer shall be 50 feet. D, maximum building height would be 80 feet, except that no building constructed east of Canterbury Turnpike would exceed 60 feet. Signage would be pursuant to the sign ordinance that was attached, and a proposed sign ordinance that was signage standards, and parking requirements would be pursuant to 3.11.5.4 and shall be subject to approval of the Commission on the City Plan in connection with site plan approval for each parcel within the business district. We believe this council has the authority under the ordinance to vary the requirements of the plan and make approval of the plan subject to the conditions which we have proposed. As has been stated previously and by Mr. Brown, this is a concept plan, and we believe that the council is within its authority to approve this plan as a concept together with the approval of the roadway. What we've done is submit a plan that is consistent with the plan of conservation and development and which approves the road and proposes a concept subject to the oversight of the CCP and this council. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Before we close the public hearing, I'm just going to afford someone who has not had a chance to speak, who chose not to speak, who is sitting here. If you want to respond, your own concerns, or I would invite that to take place right now at this time. Please.
My name's Nicole Santerre. I live at 452 Canterbury Turnpike. What I don't quite understand is listening to these gentlemen speak just now, it sounds like you're approving a lot more than a zoning change. Are you approving the plan, or are you approving just a zoning plan if you choose to approve? I'm not quite sure what you're going to be voting on.
We can address that
Yeah.
when we get to that point in the meeting. Thank you. Sam, please.
I think Samuel Browning, 671 Scotland Road, Norwich, Connecticut. I think what she was trying to ask was this. A proposed ordinance was presented to you. The question is, are you voting on that proposed ordinance tonight? If not, what is the plan for enacting it public hearings, et cetera, because the only people who have seen the text of it are you and the people proposing it. So I think you need to make it crystal clear for the audience what you're actually voting on and whether and what role this proposed ordinance is playing in your decision-making, because quite frankly, I don't care if you all have IQs of 200, you're not going to be able to absorb what was in that ordinance in literally 5 minutes of looking at it. Neither could I. So I think you really need to separate it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Is there anyone else at this time? Pardon me? I'm sorry, I'm not. Charlie? Oh. Again, is there anyone else at this time? Please, sir.
Good evening, Chair. For the record, Don Poland with Gilman York Property Advisors, 111 Founders Plaza, East Hartford, Connecticut. I'm the third-party reviewer that was retained to review this application on behalf of the council. While I know you still want to give the public an opportunity to speak, I wanted to also give the council an opportunity to ask me any questions and also for an opportunity for me to explain a few things if possible. But I'll gladly yield to the public to finish this portion.
Thank you, sir. I'd ask you to remain.
Right here?
No.
Oh,
no.
thanks.
This is not the time for that kind of back and forth exchange. We're still receiving evidence. Thank you. Again, is there anyone else like to speak at this time? Is there anyone else like to speak at this time? You.
Edie Piscatelli, 44 Wales Road. I just want to be clear with all of the construction of these new buildings and everything else and the blasting and everything, because that is like ledge central up there. Has that been taken into consideration of how that's going to affect those of us with wells and everything else in the area? Because my water table is not just drawn from my yard, it's drawn from the entire area and stuff. So I'm imagining that every one of these buildings is going to have some type of blasting and basement substructure of some kind to hold it up, especially if it's 80 feet tall. So has all that been passed by you guys as well? Has that all been in the proposal somewhere that I can have access to? Does anybody know?
At this time, nothing has been passed.
Okay.
We're still taking comment, and thank you for that concern. Again, anyone like to speak at this time? Anyone like to speak at this time? The third and final request, is there anyone likes to speak at this time? Okay.
Deanna Rhodes, Director of Planning for the City of Norwich. I just wanted to clarify, just so you understood, Don Poland is here on behalf of the Planning Department. He was hired by the Planning Department on behalf of the city, so that we have a third party reviewing this because of the city's involvement in NCDC and our close working relationship. So before you close the public hearing to get comments from our consultant, it has to be when the public hearing is open. So can you make sure that you have Don talk? Thank you, that's all.
Thank you. We can receive his comments, but asking him questions, that would come after the public hearing. It would still be part of the record of the committee, but you're saying you want all his comments now?
So for the zone change, all the records of the comments by our consultant have to be on the record during the public hearing portion of it. So that's in the same thing with anything from the applicant. So as soon as you close the public hearing, you cannot get any additional comments from the applicant or from our consultant or from the public at that case. So I just want to make sure that during this portion, if the public is finished having questions, make sure that you get those comments back and forth from the third party and from the consultant before you close it, so that there's no other additional comments or testimony that can be made before you make a decision.
Thank you. Sir, could you perhaps explain in greater detail your role, why you were hired, the things that you looked at, the things that you found, again, as a third-party consultant?
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Once again, for the record, Don Poland, Goman York Property Advisors, East Hartford, Connecticut. I was retained on behalf of the city of Norwich as an outside reviewer for this application. As already stated by your planning director, the primary reason for that was due to the working relationship with NCDC to make sure that city staff was not reviewing this application. Therefore, that was my role. I essentially, I believe, issued 3 memos or reports to this commission. The first one was a comprehensive review of the application. The second one was a short memo that finished an unfinished statement in the initial report. And then the third one was a response to the applicant's attorney in their response ultimately to my initial report. So that initial report went through a comprehensive look at the application. In that one, I want to make clear the recognition of the council, and I will use council and zoning commission interchangeably, but the role of the council and the council acting in the capacity of a zoning commission here, not as a council themselves. And I think that gets at some of the issues that have been raised or concerns with questions like, why can't this go to referendum? Zoning doesn't go to referendum. Yes, maybe other council matters do, but zoning does not, and that's the capacity. In the context of the proposed application, I think we have to separate 2 things. One is the statutory authority for consideration of a zone change, which is essentially consistency with the comprehensive plan of zoning and consideration of the plan of conservation and development. The comprehensive plan of zoning is your zoning regs and zoning map together as a document that puts forth a plan for development in the community moving forward. The POCD is your plan of conservation and development, which is the city's comprehensive plan, its 10 years plan for land use related and other related issues. It is an advisory document. You need to consider it, but you don't have to do what it says if you choose not to. The first 2 sections of my report did specifically that, reviewed both the comprehensive plan of zoning and the plan of conservation and development. And in both those cases, I found the zone change application is consistent with those documents. It's consistent with the comprehensive plan of zoning, primarily because the overlay zone in its creation in your zoning regulations conceptualizes this area of the community as the location for it. In the context of the plan of conservation and development, ultimately the existing commercial zoning designations, the PDD, and forgive me if I get this wrong, the CG or the GC, in that area already has a land use which is commercial in nature proposed for this location, and this proposed application creates an overlay over those existing zones. So the existing underlying zoning would remain. The commercial uses ultimately generalized, not the specific uses, but the ultimate commercial use remains essentially the same, and therefore being generally consistent with the objectives of that area. Where this gets a little more complicated is then you have the specific 3.11 of your zoning regulations, which lays out the requirements of the master plan for this zone change. In that, you identify 3 things you need to consider that provision 3.11 identifies 3 things you, as the zoning authority, need to consider when making your decision. The first is location, use, layout in conformance with the POCD. And I think in some ways I've already referenced the POCD, that there is conformance with the POCD, but you have the ability to further consider this location, the uses proposed, and the layout of the master plan. The second item that you as a zoning authority has the ability to consider or needs to consider is compatibility between the various uses that are being proposed within this master plan with the compatibility of neighboring land uses. And in some ways, that's the crux of what's been before you in this public hearing, the kind of, is what's being proposed within this master plan zone compatible with that which surrounds it, the other uses in the area? And then number 3 is you need to consider will there be a positive economic impact? And the provision specifically talks in the context of tax revenues, utilities, and employment opportunities. And I think the applicant submitted material related specifically to the tax revenue impacts, the employment, and so forth. And you've heard testimony on that from individuals here tonight. The master plan zone, essentially, through this process of approving the master plan, you are essentially approving what will be the specific zoning provisions for this area. That is, establishing the height, establishing the setbacks, even establishing things like buffer areas and so forth. So the master plan is designed to establish essentially the zoning criteria for future applications for individual developments to be considered against. I want to be clear in something that I think has been, not intentionally, but I think unintentionally conflated through this process. And that is, if you approve this master plan, you will not, let me be clear, you as the zoning authority will not see specific applications for the specific sites in this master plan. They will go to the CCP. That once the master plan's approved, the zoning is essentially established, and the individual site developments go to the commission on the city plan, not to you. It's been stated a number of times that these applications would come back to you. They will not. The only thing that would come back to you is a modification to the master plan itself. So let's just say that 500 square foot building that's conceptualized in this master plan were to become a 250 square foot building. Or let's say that area were to become a future area for outdoor recreation or something, passive recreation. If there's a substantial change to what's been approved as part of that master plan, then that change needs to come back to you. But the individual sites do not. My general feeling, and there's in the initial report, which I believe is dated October 17th, and then the response memo to Attorney Block, his memo in response to my initial report, I make clear that there's some challenges on the master plan side of this. One, the Attorney Block memo is dated, my response memo is dated November 10th. I just want that for the record. That at the end of the day, there is some, what I perceive as challenges related to this regulation itself. As I already said, the statutory authority, the comprehensive plan of zoning, the POCD, for the approval of a zone change, I believe that is met. I've stated that in my report. It's the specifics of the comprehensive plan, of the master plan. It's the specifics of how great of detail you, as a zoning authority, actually require to be included in this master plan. I know the applicant has proposed some modifications this evening, changes in the height regulation, 60 feet on one side, east of Canterbury, 80 feet to the west of Canterbury, and so forth. I think those are, good modifications based on what's been heard, and so forth. I also know that the applicant has submitted a regulatory provision for the signage to be considered in the development, which I also think goes a long way. At the same time, though, your master plan regulation kind of conceptualizes a design scheme for the signage and so forth being included in the master plan. And that's where I believe this gets a little bit gray. You, at the end of the day, as the zoning body, have the ability to say, we actually want to see what signs are going to look like, or at least design elements of a signage package. I think you have the ability to say that also with architecture. That being said, as NCDC has presented, that this is not being developed on spec. This is a preliminary approval to help move this project along, and then individual applications coming forward, which design authority is given to the CPC in the regulation. So, in the end here, my general feeling is, from a statutory authority perspective as to the approval of a zone change, I think the criteria has been met. As to the specifics of the master plan, your consideration of layout, of location, use, and layout, your consideration of compatibility of these uses with neighboring or surrounding uses, and your consideration of the positive economic impacts, at the end of the day, are discretionary to you. You get to decide. So if there is more information you want, and so forth, I strongly, more information you want to help you make a better decision, if that's where you want to go, I would strongly recommend requesting that from the applicant. I think you would have to keep a hearing open to receive more information and so forth. I'm not suggesting that. That's not my recommendation. I'm just stating it so that you are aware. So if you feel you need more information, you have the right to ask for it, and you have the right to obtain it in order to make that decision. I'll stop there, and if you have any questions for me, feel free to ask them now. Once you close the hearing, as was already stated, you won't be able to ask me any questions.
Thank you for that presentation. This, I'll call it new documents, as I just saw it for the first time, this summary. It's your opinion that tonight is not the night for us to digest, consume this, and incorporate this in our final decision?
I'm not sure I've seen that in its entirety, for one.
I didn't know that.
Myself. I'm not confident. Maybe the applicant can inform me or provide me with a copy. So that's part one. Number two, if you've just received something this evening and you feel you need to digest it, then I would suggest taking the time to digest it.
Thank you. Members of council, question? Anyone? If you want to put it on the record, now's the time. Please. Pro Tem, please.
Well, my question is really for Corporation Counsel. If we do not act tonight, are we able to speak directly with this gentleman and with the applicant to get questions answered?
Once you close the hearing,
Yeah, microphone, please.
once you close the hearing, then it's over. If you keep it open, you have to do it in a public session as this. You have the right to ask questions of the applicant, of this gentleman, of the city planning director. All of the questions you want to get answered before you decide to close the hearing. But the important thing is to be on the record at a hearing as opposed to some other form of getting the information. You can talk with city officials outside of the record in a different way, but the point here is to make a record.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you approaching.
So I just wanted to let you know, statutorily, you open the public hearing, you have 35 days to close the public hearing, but there's 65 days that are granted by statute that you can use in any any portion of the process that the applicant can allow you for an extension if, say, that you couldn't close within 35 days. But that is your time frame that you have for an open public hearing is 35 days. And this, again, extra 65 if you needed it with the approval of the applicant. And then after you close a public hearing, you have 65 days to make a decision. So it's 65, 35, 65. You have 65 days to open a public hearing, but we've already opened it, 35 to close it, and 65 to make a decision. But the statutes give you an extra 65 you can use throughout that process. Any questions?
Thank you, Deanna. So we started this hearing on the 5th.
Yep.
It's now the 19th. In general, we're looking staying within the 35 days, the next council meeting.
Yes, I think we just did the mathematics on that. Yes,
Yep.
it'd still be within the 35 days.
Still within the 35.
If you went past that, you would then need approval of the applicant to have the additional time, or you'd be forced to close the public hearing.
Thank you. At this time, I feel it's important that that time be taken. So I'm going to ask for a motion at this time to continue the public hearing until the next meeting of the council, which I believe is the Tuesday in January 3rd in January. You have a, yes, sir, your hands up.
I'm going to make that motion.
Okay, thank you. Motion by Alderman Wilson. Oh, and I would point out that the elevators are working again at City Hall, so we can hold public hearings at City Hall again because they'll be ADA compliant. It would not be here. Yes, Alderman Wilson made a motion. Alderman Gould, second. The motion is to continue the public hearing again until January 3rd. Any discussion?
No,
We need a roll call, please. Gould.
Roll call.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes 7-0 to continue the public hearing to the next council meeting, January 3rd, held at City Hall, 100 Broadway. Thank you.
Number 2, an ordinance adding Article 8 of Chapter 7 of the Code of Ordinances for a municipal opioid settlement fund.
At this time, I declare this public hearing open, and I would invite people who would like to speak on ordinance number 2 at this time. Is anyone? Yes, please.
Good evening, everyone. I just took a sigh of relief, and I don't even live in Norwich. My name is Jennifer Chudukowicz. I live at 161 Shunpike Road in Cromwell, Connecticut. And I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for SCAD, the Southeastern Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependence. But most importantly, I'm a woman in long-term recovery, having found recovery in June of 1988. That's 34 years in recovery, so you don't have to do the math. It's been a long night. As the expert and trusted provider of substance use disorder treatment in southeastern Connecticut for over 56 years, we at SCAD feel confident to give testimony tonight and, dare I say, a recommendation regarding how the money which the City of Norwich received from the federal and state opioid settlements should be spent. The intent of this money is very clear. It is to prevent opioid overdose deaths. The Department of Public Health just released the Connecticut Department of Public Health Drug Overdose Monthly Report for the last 3 years, and I made 15 copies. This is the fatal, unintentional, and undetermined intent drug overdose report, key findings of the drug overdose decedents in the state of Connecticut from 2019 to 2021. This report sadly states that New London County had the highest drug overdose death rate in 2021, ahead of New Haven and Hartford counties. The best way to prevent overdose deaths is through the distribution and education of Narcan in every community, business, school, and organization. The City of Norwich sits at the heart of the CRAC, which is Southeastern Regional Action Council, catchment of 41 towns. And they are the chosen agency for this region by DEMIS to provide overdose prevention services in the form of Narcan education and distribution throughout the City of Norwich and 40 other towns. For over 30 years, CRAC has had boots on the ground educating youth and providing prevention services and resources to this community. They are the experts at preventing overdose. By utilizing the experts at CRAC, the City of Norwich will maximize every dollar received through the federal opioid settlement. We urge you to engage with them immediately to organize a plan for the education and distribution of Narcan and other evidence-based practices which support overdose prevention. In closing, I'm going to do a little show and tell for you tonight. In my purse, I have 2 items that I never leave home without. One is my EpiPen, because I'm allergic to bees and would likely die if I was stung. The EpiPen reverses the venom's deathly reaction long enough to get me to the hospital to receive treatment. The other item that I carry is Narcan. And this is what it looks like. It's this tiny. All humans would not survive a lethal dose of fentanyl. Fentanyl is found in every single street drug available right now. People do not know that they are choosing to use fentanyl. They think that they're buying prescription drugs from a friend's grandmother's drug cabinet, or they think that they're buying marijuana when really they're getting fentanyl. Be prepared, Norwich. Normalize Narcan. Let the experts educate and arm you with our best defense for overdose deaths. Education and distribution of Narcan by your partners at CRAC. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'd just like to speak at this time on ordinance number 2. Yes, Mrs. Vilberg.
Joanne Philbrick, Norwich Town. This is going to be a very difficult for me, and I'm probably going to cry. Some of you know my story, and some of you don't. About 5 years ago, I was sitting where you're sitting in my second term as a member of the Norwich City Council. And we had a presentation on opioids, about funding. And there was a lot of pushback in the audience about drug addicts and people not being responsible for themselves. But what they didn't know, and until I came out about it, was that as I sat there, I was addicted to opioids. A 75-year-old grandma who became addicted to oxycodone because my healthcare professionals didn't feel the need to educate me. After spending 12 weeks in rehab for a fractured femur, not a fractured hip, a fractured femur, where I was fed a constant dose of oxycodone, I was sent home. I continued on the medication because that's what my doctor told me to do. And I come from a generation where you trust your doctors, lawyers, priests, clergy, those people in authority. But then I was at a ceremony when Chief Scan was retiring, and I was sitting there, and I think I may have been sitting next to Stacy, who had been with me on my journey through recovery, as Peter was, and numerous other people helping me get around in a wheelchair and doing all those other things that you had to do. And they didn't have to do that for me. They weren't my family. But I was at Chief Scan's retirement party, and I had been feeling a little weird for a couple of days, but I didn't think anything of it. And then I realized, as I was sitting there in that front row, that there was something horribly wrong with me. So I got up, walked to one of the conference rooms, and the Norwich firefighters were like, oh crap, there's something really wrong here. They called an ambulance. I was taken to Bacchus. And the first thing the emergency room doctor said to me, and remember, I was 75 years old at the time. The first thing the doctor said to me, well, what medications are you on? And I was like, well, I'm on gabapentin, oxycodone. And he was like, well, when's the last time you had one? And I was like, well, I stopped because I don't need them anymore. And he said, oh, you're going through withdrawal. And I was like, withdrawal? And he was, yes. So I know it's been late, but I think this is important for you to understand. So I said, well, what do I do? And he stood there and he looked me straight in the face and he said, well, ordinarily, we'd send you to a detox facility. But unfortunately, we don't have detox facilities for people like you. And I said, what do you mean, people like me? He said, old people. He said, go home and figure it out on your own. So I did. And it almost friggin' killed me. The drugs didn't kill me, but the detox almost did. But to backtrack a little, I gave up my seat on the council because I said to people, I am addicted to oxycodone. It's not right for me to be up here making decisions that affect your lives when I can't even keep my own shit together, for lack of a better word. And sometimes you have to use profanity and vulgarity to get the point across, because people just don't listen anymore. So long story short, I started on my journey. I called UCFS. Nope, don't have anything. I called Reliance House. Nope, don't have anything. I called Serac. Nope, we don't have anything. I called Stonington. I called every place that I can think of, and they all said, nope, don't have anything for you. So here we are, 5 years later. I will never be the same. The oxycodone messed with my brain chemistry. You wonder why I'm a little batty? It's because my brain's not wired the same way anymore. In Norwich, for a while, we would have meetings. They were run by Carrie Bildo. we'd go to the Rose City Center, and people who were in the community would know that they could go there as a safe place and have discussions, and then for some reason they just stopped doing it. But people didn't stop dying. I had a talk with Kate, and she told me that one of the largest percentages of people dying from oxycodone overdoses in the city of Norwich now are people over the age of 55. This is one of the biggest, this is as big, if not bigger, than COVID. People don't choose. So now I am labeled, I have a label now that I am a drug addict. There are people in this community who still refer to me as that formal councilwoman who's a drug addict. I haven't had any, I can't even get a Tylenol from my doctor anymore. But the point I'm trying to make is when you receive this money, and I believe it's $18,000 a year for the next 18 years, $18,000 is nothing. You should be holding, I have heard, I asked the question directly, and I would like it if someone could substantiate it for me. I asked if the police officers carried Narcan in their cruisers, and I was told some do, some don't. You're worried about your volunteers and your automatic aid? You should make it a mandatory that every police officer, every school, every civic organization within the confines of this city have Narcan readily available, and people are trained in how to use it. I don't want anyone else to fall through the cracks. I have lost my family because of this. The only one that has stood by me has been my son. My other family members are disgusted with me because I had no self-control. I should have known better. People don't choose to have cancer or diabetes or mental illness. Sometimes, again, I don't mean to be profound, shit happens. It can happen to the best of us, it can happen to the worst of us. And as our border issue continues to expand, the fentanyl that comes across is going to be devastating. So I ask you, and you know how tight I am when it comes to a dollar. I would ask you to appropriate even more money, because $18,000 is not anything to help mitigate this crisis. So I ask you for understanding, compassion. Some people up there, you may know someone, you may have a family member that struggles with addiction, you may have lost a loved one or a friend. I'm telling you, it can happen to anybody. So please, let's come together on this one and get this money into the hand. The last thing that I will say is, and that's the other thing, the reason I have a tendency to go, I don't have a support system. There is no group I can go to and say, look, I'm struggling with these issues. Who will listen to me? Nobody will listen to me because we don't have programs for people like you. So please, try to understand how important. And those of you that have stood by me, I thank you, because I shouldn't be here. I should be dead. I don't know why I'm here, but I am, with all my flaws and all my imperfections and all my little idiosyncrasies. I've had some very, very dark moments. And when you suffer from addiction, it takes everything in you not to say. It would just be so much easier to go downtown and find somebody that I could buy oxycodone from. It might have fentanyl, it might kill me, but maybe it wouldn't. And for that fleeting moment, I would have some peace. So today, somebody knocked at my front door, and I looked out and I saw a van. I didn't understand it, so I went down to the front door and I opened the door. And there was a man standing there with the most beautiful boxwood Christmas tree. And he said, "Is this 10 Elm Avenue?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "This is for you." And I was like, "I didn't order anything." He said, No, it's for you." So I took it and I took it in the house and I put it on the table and I looked at the card. And it said, "There are people that care about you." So I ask you to please think about the totality of everything. Every action has a reaction. Every action has a consequence. So please, in your ability and responsibility, get this money to these agencies as quickly as possible. To me, it's a slap in the face that the Sacklers and all these other big drug companies made millions and took tens of thousands of lives, and for them, an $18 billion settlement, we'll make that up with the next drug that comes along. So thank you for listening to me. As I said, this has been an incredibly hard journey for me. Some of the best years that I have had in the city of Norwich were the almost 4 years that I served on the city council. I made some great friends. I learned so much. And then because of my addiction, that was it. Nobody wanted to talk to me anymore because I was that drug addict. So I wear my heart on my sleeve. I have no secrets. I have no filters. But I know that there are people in this community that struggle every single day. You may not know that the person sitting next to you at church, in the restaurant, is suffering from some sort of addiction, be it drugs, alcohol. There are any number. The list of addictions goes on and on and on and on. So again, it's been a very long night again, and I thank you for giving me this opportunity because it's cathartic for me. It helps me, so please, Narcan everywhere, Narcan for everybody. It's a sad commentary on life in America today, but it is what it is. So thank you. And I wish you all a happy, healthy, and 23's got to be better than 22 because it couldn't get much worse. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your courage. And I would like to speak on ordinance number 2, please.
Good evening, Sheila Hayes, 382 Laurel Hill Avenue. I'm reading the ordinance again because I want clarity. The fact that what this ordinance is really doing is adding a section to Chapter 7 to be able to create the funding and the appropriation and the collection of the funds. That's what this particular ordinance is doing. The second part of it is that the question I have is what the woman who's spoken before me and then Mrs. Philbrook is, what is the mechanism or what is going to be the process, and maybe that is being handled through the city manager's office, the process for how is this money going to be dispersed and utilized to its maximum by the community, which may or may not be in this ordinance. I don't read it that way. I would say, I think this is an opportunity to look at, I'm not in disagreement with CRAC, but I will say the city of Norwich has worked with CRAC in the past, but we also have some opportunities to really look beyond just one agency or the, to address, especially an issue that Mrs. Philbrick's bringing up, that there are not programs for everyone in this city who has been impacted. And that's been part of the limitation as to the ignorance of doctors, and I'll say it that way, because I, unfortunately, many years ago, had a doctor who was prescribing those kind of pills. And when I said, they're not working, and what happens, and he says, oh, well, if you become addicted to it, we'll deal with that on another level. And I said, no, we won't. I just won't take them. So I went to alternative medicine. Not everyone has that opportunity. Not everyone has that kind of foresight to be able to say that to their doctors. But there are people who cannot get services. And I don't care what agency we're talking about. If someone like Mrs. Philbrick is saying she went all these places and could not find anyone to give her services, there has to be other people out there like her. So please take this opportunity, whether it's through the city manager or through Norwich Human Services, whoever, to look at where are the gaps, where can we utilize some of this money to address the lack of programs or the lack of educational opportunities in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak on ordinance number 2 at this time? Anyone else like to speak on ordinance number 2 at this time? Anyone like to speak on ordinance number 2 at this time? Seeing no one else, I declare that hearing closed. Thank you.
Number 3, an ordinance to be adopted by the Council of the City of Norwich, acting as the zoning authority and legislative body of the City of Norwich, voting to opt out of provisions of Connecticut Public Act number 21-29 regarding allowances of accessory apartments as permitted within, and to state its reasons for doing so.
Thank you. I declare public hearing number 3 to be open. If anyone would like to address the council at this time, I would invite them. Mr. Rhodes.
Deanna Rhodes, Director of Planning, Neighborhood Services. So this ordinance is about opting out of the statutory requirement to allow for accessory dwelling units by right. The City of Norwich already has accessory dwelling unit regulations that are very good, that we think that go above and beyond. Our regulations allow that when you create one by special permit, and the commission has some discretion there to set some additional criteria on it. One of the things is that it becomes a affordable unit. If you get an accessory dwelling unit, you put something on the land records that we give to you, and it creates it to be an affordable unit for the city. And we think that's really creative way of doing it. We don't have a lot of requests for accessory dwelling units. This statute really came about because of affordable housing in the state, and it was really meant for communities with primarily single-family housing zoning, where they're not creating more opportunities for residential in their communities. So it is forcing the hand of these communities to have these options, to say, hey, you have to allow for additional density because you're not doing it in other ways. The City of Norwich, we have many multifamily homes. We have single-family homes that we already allow in every single residential zone, except for the residential open space. We already allow for that. A single-family home can get an accessory dwelling unit, and we think our regulations are good. So Otherwise, what would happen if we don't opt out, it becomes an as-of-right thing. There's no public hearing, there's no criteria, and they actually allow them to be bigger than what we allow in our regulations, and we just feel that the state doesn't need to intervene in the city of Norwich regarding accessory dwelling units. So the way the statute reads, and I just want to clarify this for Mike in your motion tonight, that in order to opt out of the state law, the zoning board, in the case that the council is, must hold a public hearing to gather feedback, and then with a 2/3 majority vote to opt out. And then that decision is then sent to the municipality's legislative body, which is the council, which also must vote on a 2/3 majority to opt out. All of those votes must occur before January 1st. So I just wanted to put that on the record, so I don't know if you need to make two votes on it, repeating the same thing, one as the zoning authority and one as the legislative body. But Mike can advise you to that, but that's what I'm reading. Okay? If there's any questions for me, I'm here.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you. Would anyone else like to address the council on ordinance number 3 at this time?
Shall I use the 82 Laurel Hill Avenue? So I'm going to say what I originally came up to say is that I am disappointed that the city is considering to opt out of the accessory dwelling units. Based on what I read were your reasons for opting out. We talk often, yes, the city of Norwich may be meeting the threshold of what is affordable housing. The issue, not just in the city, but across the state, is it is about affordability. Listening to Deanna, I'm still a bit confused that if you opt out and someone decides down the road just because it's something the city is doing now to allow accessible housing, can someone in the planning department, city manager, or whatever department it falls under, decide that they're not going to allow accessible housing to be built in the city? If you opt out of it, then you're not under any requirement, if I understood the statute that the state passed. And not quite sure where the authority is coming for the city to allow the accessible housing that it is currently allowing. So I'd like clarification on that. And I don't know if it's, if you pass it under the zoning and you don't pass it under when you're in the role of the city, or, what are those implications? There's just a lot to this, and I mean, I do know the history of why the state passed it, but at the same time, you need to look at how many people could, if they knew it was available. I don't know how much the city advertises. If they knew that they could have a separate dwelling, and it could be affordable, whether it's for a family member, whether it's for a friend. I know a lot of cases it could be to help somebody who's going to school that can't afford the rents right now that are sky high, as well as all the inflation. So I'm just asking you to think through this and ask the questions that you need before you vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further concern or comments on ordinance number 3 this time? Are there further comments on ordinance number 3? There are further comments on ordinance number 3. Seeing no further comments, thank you all.
Second reading in action on the above ordinances previously presented. Number 2, an ordinance amending Article 8 of Chapter 7 of the Code of Ordinances for the municipal opioid settlement funds.
At this time, I'd ask for a motion to bring it to the floor. Alderwoman Gould, second. Alderwoman Berto. Is there discussion? Alderman Wilson.
So the only thing, and I think it's kind of the question that was asked is, I'm just going to give the best example I can. Kind of how we did with the ARPA. The city manager will put forth the plan as to what he thinks the best use of those dollars are around the April meeting time, if I'm correct.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further question or comment? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto? Yes. Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes 7-0. The ordinance is adopted.
Number 3, an ordinance to be adopted by the Council of the City of Norwich, acting as a zoning authority, and the legislative body of the City of Norwich, voting to opt out of provisions of the Connecticut Public Act Number 2129 regarding allowances of accessory apartments as permitted therein, and to state its reasons for doing so.
Thank you. At this time, I'd ask for a motion to bring it to the floor. Alderwoman Gould, second. Alderwoman Berto. Is there discussion? Alderman Wilson.
Could I have Deanna come to the podium, please? Just to kind of clarify some of the questions that were asked about the opting out process and those questions, could you kind of address them?
Sure. I mean, you're talking about the things that Sheila had said. Okay. So it's just to clarify, it's not about accessibility, it's accessory. So it's accessory apartments. We already do allow this in the city of Norwich, and people do take advantage of it. And it's held as a special permit, which means that there is a public hearing, and then abutters do have an opportunity to comment on it. Because in single-family zones, we find that it can be obtrusive. It can be wonderful. Most of the times that people come forward, it is for a family member. It is for a young person coming back home after graduating college, and they want their own apartment. So it's working the way it is right now. The way the statute reads, it's basically, there doesn't need to be parking on your own site. You don't have to have neighbors know. It's just kind of, you get a zoning permit, it's a done deal. And we just feel that we have a good process in place and it works. The statutes don't have the requirement for the affordability. That's something that we do require, and we think that's a good thing, even though we do have more than the meet the criteria for the minimal number of affordable housing. We are double that, but we still have that requirement, and I think it's a good thing because it's done in a responsible way, and the people coming forward recognize that. It also has a requirement, our regulations, that if you have one in your home, there needs to be the owner of the property living on site. So they could live in the accessory apartment or they can live in the home, but they can't have a rental house and get an accessory apartment. And so there's nothing like that in the statute. So this is a way that it's really, we have great controls in place. And we just think our regulation is better than what the state's trying to do. And I don't think it was meant for Norwich. I think it was meant for communities that don't want to deal with having more housing.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that those things were on the record, so thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Singh.
One quick question. So it still goes to Commission of City Plan?
It does.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If we opt out.
Okay.
Further questions or comment at this time? I'm sorry, the corporate counsel.
Just so the council understands the process tonight, before this vote is as the zoning commission. And it'll take a two-thirds vote, that is at least 5 people have to vote in the affirmative, in which case it goes to the council as the legislative body. And the way we've set it up, I think, to make it clearer, is that the resolution number 1 will be adopting as the legislative body this same ordinance, assuming that the council approves this ordinance as the zoning commission or zoning authority. I don't know if anyone has a question about that, but I would like to answer it now before you vote.
Good.
Thank you, Michael. Roll call then, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto? Yes. Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes. The ordinance adopted 7-0.
Petitions and communication. Letter of resignation from P. Michael Lahan from the Senior Advisory Affairs Commission, sorry.
Thank you. I'd ask for a motion for this communication to be received and extend our thanks for all of his service. Alderman Gould, second. Alderman Wilson. Is there discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Yes. Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia? Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
That's 7-0.
Motion passes 7-0. Thank you.
City Manager's report.
At this time, because of the lateness of the hour, we're going to dispense with the reading of the city manager's report. We'd invite all members to take it home. Thank you.
Citizen comment on resolutions.
At this time, I declare citizen comment on resolutions to be open. There are 6 on our agenda. Is there anyone like to speak on any of the resolutions at this time? Anyone like to address the council at this time on the 6 resolutions? Anyone like to address the council on the 6 resolutions at this time? Seeing none, I declare it closed. Thank you.
Number 1, relative to an ordinance to be adopted by the Council of the City of Norwich, acting as the zoning authority in the legislative body of the City of Norwich, voting to opt out of provisions, Connecticut Public Act number 2129, regarding allowances of accessory apartments as permitted therein, to the state its reasons for doing so.
Thank you. Entertain a motion, please. Alderman Gould, second. Alderman Wilson. Is there discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto? Yes. Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes 7-0.
Number 2, relative to a reappointment of a regular member and a reappointment of an alternate member, and then an appointment of an alternate member to the Historic District Commission.
Thank you. At this time, move the resolution forward. Alderman Wilson, second. Alderman Roberto. Is there discussion? Alderman Wilson.
Just want to say thank you to Greg, Peter, and Dane for wanting to continue to serve or step forward and serve on the Historic District Commission, and appreciate them coming in for an interview.
Thank you. Any further comment? Seeing none, roll call.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto? Yes. Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes 7-0.
Number 3, relative to an appointment to the Recreation Advisory Board.
Motion, please bring it forward. Alderman Grant Neuendorf, second. Alderman Wilson. Is there discussion? Alderman Grant Neuendorf.
So I just wanted to say that Kara Kochansky, Coach K, has been a great member of the Norwich community, serving as, the cross-country coach and recently giving up her job as the track coach at NFA. Kara is a great person, really knows the city well, and will be awesome on the Rec Advisory Board, and cannot wait to work with her.
Thank you, sir. Alderman Wilson.
Thank you. I echo the sentiments of Alderman Neuendorf. An amazing individual and just a vast amount of knowledge when it comes to recreation in this community, but even beyond this community, and the energy and ideas that were brought forth even during the interview process. I can't wait to see what she's able to do on the Rec Advisory Board. And for me, knowing I am stepping aside soon, giving them the individuals they need on that board is important as we have our focus to continue to grow our recreation in the city of Norwich. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto? Yes. Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes 7-0.
Number 4, relative to an appointment to the School Building Committee 2020.
Motion, please bring this forward. Alderman Singh, second. Alderman Berto. Is there discussion? Alderman Wilson.
Just want to thank Ms. Sheila Hayes for stepping forward in this role. It's a big shoes big project that we're moving forward with, so thank you for the willingness to serve.
Thank you, sir. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto?
Yes.
Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes 7-0.
Number 5, relative to reappointments to the Commission on City Plan.
A motion, please bring it forward. Alderman Singh, second. Alderman Berto. Third discussion. Alderman Singh.
I just want to thank Michael and Kathy because I served with them on Commission of City Plan for many years. And one thing I like about them is they are a critical thinker. And we need our citizens to be like that. So I'm very glad that they chose to serve in this commission, and I wish them good luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Alderman Wilson.
Just thanking Mike and Kathy both for coming in and interviewing and continuing to serve on a pivotal commission here in the city of Norwich.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto? Yes. Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes 7-0. Thank you.
Number 6, relative to an appointment to the Personnel and Pension Board.
Motion, please bring it forward. Alderwoman Gould, second. Alderman Wilson. Is there discussion? Alderman Wilson.
Just thanking Bob Punch for his service on the pension and personnel and pension board, and wishing him the best in his role as a regular member.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderman Berto? Yes. Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
7-0.
Motion passes 7-0. A motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Alderwoman Gould, second. Alderman Grant Neuendorf. Roll call, please.
Alderman Wilson?
Yes.
Alderwoman Berto? Oh, yes. Alderman Singh?
Yes.
Alderman Gould?
Yes.
Alderman Neuendorf?
Yes.
President Pro Tem DeLucia?
Yes.
Mayor Nystrom?
Yes.
It's 7-0.
Motion passes 7-0. We are adjourned. Thank you all. A Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year.